So what if I told you that the Bible never describes angels with wings? Sounds strange, right? Because if you close your eyes right now and imagine an angel, chances are you see a human figure with wings, glowing in soft light, and probably a halo on its head. But where did that image come from? Is it from scripture or from culture? Today we're going to separate biblical angels from the creatures people often confuse them with, and in the process, recover the biblical logic behind what angels really are. I'm Ainsworth Swaby, and this is Documentaries on Doctrines, recovering the biblical logic behind Christian doctrine. In Scripture, angels are consistently described as appearing in human form. Hebrews 13:2 tells us to treat strangers with kindness, because by doing so, some people have entertained angels without knowing it. That only makes sense if angels normally appear indistinguishable from humans. Look at Genesis 18. Three men visit Abraham, one of them being Yahweh himself. Then later, in chapter 19, the other two are identified as angels, where the text calls them men and angels interchangeably. And in the New Testament, when people visited Jesus' tomb, Matthew and John said angels were there, but Mark and Luke just called them men. Even at Jesus' ascension in Acts 1, the angels in the crowd were simply called two men in white clothing. Here is something important. When biblical authors saw something that looked like a man, they called it a man. When they saw something else, they described it differently. Angels are described with dazzling brightness, glorious appearance, sometimes terrifying presence, but never wings. So, where did the wings come from? There are a few creatures in the Bible who have wings, lending to the idea that they are different types of angels. But before concluding on that, let's actually read those passages carefully. We're going to read a few verses from Isaiah 6, Ezekiel 1, and Ezekiel 10. This is Isaiah 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above it stood seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. So I said, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a live coal which he had taken with the tongs from the altar. Now, reading from Ezekiel 1. The word of the Lord came expressly to Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, by the river Kibar. A whirlwind was coming out of the north, a great cloud with raging fire engulfing itself, and brightness was all around it and radiating out of its midst. Also from within it came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. Each one had 4 faces, and each one had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the soles of calves' feet. They sparkled like the color of burnished bronze. The hands of a man were under their wings on their 4 sides, and each of the 4 had faces and wings. As for the likeness of their faces, each had the face of a man. Each of the 4 had the face of a lion on the right side. Each of the 4 had the face of an ox on the left side, and each of the 4 had the face of an eagle. I'm reading from Ezekiel 10. This is the living creature I saw under the God of Israel by the river Kibar, and I knew they were cherubim. Each one had 4 faces, and each one 4 wings, and the likeness of the hands of a man was under their wings, and the likeness of their faces was as the same faces which I had seen by the river Kibar, their appearance and their persons. We just read some verses from Isaiah 6, Ezekiel 1, and Ezekiel 10. Ezekiel saw the same beings on 2 separate occasions and described them for us. Now let's take a look at it. Isaiah 6 talks about seraphim with 6 wings. Ezekiel 1 and Ezekiel 10 discuss living creatures with 4 wings and 4 faces. And after describing what he saw, Ezekiel confirmed, I knew they were cherubim. Here's the key detail. In none of those passages are these beings called angels. They are called seraphim, they are called cherubim, they are called living creatures, never angels. And their appearance is completely different from angels. Cherubim are described as hybrid, non-human beings. They have human features, animal features, and a lot of symbolic attributes. Angels, on the other hand, are consistently described as looking like men. Think about it like this. If you saw a cherub with multiple faces, plus wings and other animal qualities, you wouldn't casually describe it as a man in white robes, would you? Neither did the biblical authors. Just as humans on earth are distinct from animals, angels in heaven are distinct from cherubim. They are all heavenly beings, but they are not the same kinds of beings. So, are we saying that angels are the humans in heaven while cherubim are the animals in heaven? As far as appearance goes, yes, that's the comparison. Angels appear in human form, while cherubim are described with animal-like features and multiple wings. But that difference is only about appearance. Scripture never suggests that cherubim are lesser beings. This video is only focusing on the visual differences we can clearly see in Scripture. If angels in the Bible don't have wings, where did the idea come from? Interestingly, early Christian art did not portray angels with wings. In the Roman catacombs and early Christian carvings, as far back as the 3rd and 4th century, angels were drawn as ordinary human figures. For example, this is the angel Gabriel announcing Jesus' birth to the shepherds. And here we have the angel of the Lord preventing Abraham from sacrificing Isaac. These artworks tell us that Christians back then didn't have a concept of angels looking like human beings with wings. But as Christianity spread through Greco-Roman culture, artists began borrowing imagery from pagan symbols, especially winged divine beings like Nike, the goddess of victory. Over time, cultural imagery slowly replaced biblical descriptions in the Christian imagination. Scripture never changed, or mental pictures did. By the time you and I showed up, the idea of angels having wings was long baked into Christian thinking. That's more than 1500 years of normalization, not because the Bible taught it, but because culture reinforced it. So we get it. Angels look like men when they want to blend in instead of showing up fully as themselves and risk scaring us off. But could it be that they have wings and just choose to hide them in order to look like us? Well, the Bible doesn't seem to support that theory. To get a glimpse of angels when they're not blending in with humans, but instead revealing more of their heavenly glory, we can look at Daniel 10. There, Daniel encounters a figure who many believe to be Gabriel, appearing with a little more heat than we're used to. Now, on the 24th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, that is, the Tigris, I lifted my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose waist was girded with gold of Uphaz. His body was like beryl, his face like the appearance of lightning, his eyes like torches of fire, his arms and feet like burnished bronze in color, and the sound of his words like the voice of a multitude. This is one of the rare moments in Scripture where someone who clearly isn't human is still described in unmistakably human form. The person shines, blazes, and overwhelms your senses, yet he is still described as a man. There's no mention of wings, no animal features, no hybrid body parts. Now, the text itself doesn't explicitly name this figure as Gabriel. However, many readers make that connection because, by this point, the book had already developed a pattern of Gabriel appearing to Daniel as a messenger from Yahweh. Not everyone agrees with that identification, and that's okay. What is clear is this: he appeared in human form. And that matters because throughout Scripture, angels are the only heavenly beings consistently described as looking like men, except for the Son of Man himself. Now, there is one figure in the Old Testament who does not behave like ordinary angels at all. He speaks as God, he receives worship that belongs to God, he carries divine authority. The Bible calls him the angel of the Lord, and understanding who he is changes how we view a key concept in the New Testament. But that deserves its own episode. Subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss that conversation. Here's a quick recap of what we discovered today. The Bible never describes angels with wings. The winged creatures in Scripture are called cherubim, not angels. Our modern image of angels comes more from culture than Scripture. And if that's true, then we may need to rethink more than just angels. Don't you think?